When last we saw Furina in the 4.1 Archon quest, she seemed off. The boisterous and self-absorbed Furina was no more, instead replaced by a saddened Furina. And I get that, she was getting dog-walked by Arlecchino the entire Archon quest, but still. When she was looking on at the Traveler and neuvillette speaking with one another, she had a certain look in her eye. I'm not going to speak to what it was, but it was kind of like, she was just like, damn.
Furina?
Damn, and then she sort of just walked off with neuvillette taking notice of her. It's interesting this whole interaction with Furina happened right after neuvillette came forward about his true identity, at a time when Furina's true identity is being called into question.
It is, however, quite amusing to me that after all my years working in intelligence gathering, I've come to realize I am at a complete loss regarding the identity of the god of the land of my birth. Don't you think Fontaine is quite intriguing? A catastrophe looms, yet many secrets have yet to rise to the surface.
Could be a bit of symbolism on Miyoyo's part, but who knows. Anyway, regardless of who Furina is cosplaying as, Focalors is the first secondary Archon we've had so far that appears to, okay, let me reiterate, appears to, because at the end of the day this is Fontaine, to have no real connection with the former Archon. While Focalors is the god of justice, we don't know what Egeria's divine ideal was. Compare this with the other Archons. Ei and Makoto were twins who shared the divine ideal of eternity, and Nahida is a reincarnation of Rukkhadevata who both share the divine ideal of wisdom. Regarding a potential connection between the two Archons, there hasn't been anything so far, but there have been a couple wild theories like Furina killed Egeria, or that Furina is the first Oceanid made by Egeria's tear. I mean, doubt these are true, but they are fun. With respect to divine ideals, this could be the first time a succeeding Archon didn't have the same divine ideals as the previous one, and it may have caused some problems. It's super tough to say what Egeria's ideal was, given it's never stated and not much is known about her. However, I have a reason to suspect that it wasn't justice. I'll get into why in a second, but I do want to point out I tried finding out under which god the opera Epiclese was built, but I couldn't find the answer. The only reason I lean towards Furina being the answer is that Epiclese is Greek for invoke, while in Roman mythology it was believed if you invoked the goddess Furina during your court proceedings, she would grant you luck. But the problem I run into with the opera house being made by Furina is it would feel weird to me that Egeria had the prison made without some formal court proceedings to produce criminals. I mean, it's either that or, like, Fontaine is just O-block. I mean, just take your pick. And I get that the prison was made to guard the primordial sea, but she still made it after hearing the exiles repent. Putting all that aside for now, the biggest reason I don't think Furina and Egeria had the same ideals is due to the Oceanids' reaction to Focalors becoming the new Hydro Archon of Fontaine. I mean, in short, they hated it. They hated her, bro. As soon as she became the new Hydro Archon, they just bounced. Despite loving Egeria, they were not the biggest fans of Furina. The reasons for this somehow managed to tell us both a lot and nothing. The Oceanids refused to accept Focalors as the new Hydro Archon. Why? Don't know. The Oceanids claim that when Focalors became the new Hydro Archon, the waters of Fontaine became tainted with hate. What do they mean by this? Don't know. And finally, the most interesting point stated by the strongest Oceanid Rodea, that big burly bitch in Chinks village who says the word water about 7,000 times over the course of her boss fight. Well, in regards to her leaving Fontaine, Endora stated that Rodea wanted to, quote, keep the years of yesteryear alive. Given the love the Oceanids had for Egeria, this statement implies to me that they long for her ideals once more, and because they can't find it in Fontaine anymore, they just left. What those ideals were and why they mean so much to the Oceanids, again, I don't know. Me guessing what Egeria's ideal was would be a complete shot in the dark and a little beneath me, but, allow me to turn on my echolocation and say she's the god of counsel. Fuck it, why not? In Roman mythology, the goddess Egeria was best known for providing guidance and counsel to the second king of Rome, Numa Pompilius. Neuvillette stated the No, I can't do it. Neuvillette. All the people sitting here telling me there's no R in Neuvillette. Why do you keep saying it like that? Because that's how it sounds to me. They all sound like they're saying Neuvillette, but you all keep trying to correct me. Neuvillette, say Neuvillette, and you're trying to force me to be something I'm not. I didn't realize I was dealing with the fucking French Brigade over here, but everyone's Napoleon Dynamite. Oui, bonjour. Anyway, Neuvillette stated the current prophecy of Fontaine is rooted in Egeria's last words, in which she says this:
The original sin is the fairest. Everyone sinks. Make the most of the final feast, because for the sinners, the curtain call has come.
Neuvillette also adds he thinks this may be the conundrum that was left behind for Furina by the previous Archon. To me, however, Egeria's words in the Overture teaser read almost like a warning. I mean, this could just be me shamelessly reaching to try and make my point, but regardless, the original sin is the fairest is probably alluding to the fact that everyone in Fontaine is born with sin. The reason for this is most likely due to that one nation in the First Era. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's this book called The History of the Decline and Fall of Rumeria, and it details the history of Fontaine. In it, it tells us that Fontaine was previously known as Rumeria, and before it was Rumeria, it was some unnamed nation that was around at a time when the Celestial Envoys still walked the city. So that's really early on in Teyvat's history. That's even before the arrival of the Second Who came. In this nation, things were going great, swimmingly even, until people got bored of living like this and desired things that weren't promised to them by the heavens. They then tried to break free from their fates, and as a result, Celestia got angry and just decided to throw a flood. It sort of just wiped them off the map. I mean, I believe this was the event that kickstarted all Fontainians having their original sin. As a result of this original sin, when Egeria says everyone sinks, it could be that those with the sin will fall victim to the primordial waters. The final feast could be what Fontaine has been doing for the last 500 years, engaging in one final indulgence through court dramas to keep their minds off the fact that for the sinners, the curtain call has come. You know, this kind of reminds me, where does neuvillette fit in with this prophecy? We saw the primordial waters don't affect him, but the prophecy supposedly states that the Hydro Archon will be left weeping alone on her throne. So is he chilling, or like, what's going on with that? Whether or not this was a warning from Egeria to Focalors, it's being taken seriously all the same. We'll have to wait and see if the prophecy is avoided, but given the fact that the Traveler has essentially just become Jesus Christ to the people of Teyvat, a man who just came from the sky and goes around nation to nation solving crises, I really can't imagine that this prophecy is going to be a problem he cannot handle. It'll be interesting to see how Celestia responds to, or if Celestia responds to modern day Fontaine defying prophecy that stemmed from the heavens in the first place, especially since people changing their fate was what landed them in trouble in the first place. I do want to point out, however, a weird technicality regarding this whole thing. The prophecy circling around modern day Fontaine is said to be rooted in Egeria's last words. However, we don't know if the Overture teaser quote was in fact Egeria's last words. If it happens that those weren't her last words, and her last words were going into more detail regarding the prophecy, potentially even name-dropping Furina, then this changes a lot, because in Neuvillette's own words, he name-drops Furina when talking about Egeria's last words. If Egeria herself name-dropped Furina, then this makes you wonder what's really going on here, because then it implies that Egeria can either see the future, or knew Furina would become the Hydro Archon. Somehow. We know absolutely nothing about how a new Archon is chosen. Rukkhadevata just sort of ran it back with a smaller version of herself, and Nea and Makoto are twins, so one died and the other one took over and no one noticed. So in cases like these, all bets are off right now. We don't know if Celestia gets involved or what's going on. Regardless, this is all just based on speech, so I don't want to like really just get too into it because it could just be nothing, but who knows. Ultimately, 4.2 does seem to be the last Archon quest, given that's the patch Furina comes out, and we should be also getting her story quest. So I hope we learned something about Celestia. Come on, man. It's been 3 years. It's been 3 years, Mihayo. Surely we learned something about how a new Archon is picked, or what happens when a new seat opens up, or just something, man.